All right, we are active. What is going on, guys? This is Garrett and this is Lincoln coming at you with the ninth corner of the Octagon episode something. Yes, exactly. As you can see, we are physically in front of you guys right now.
We're back.
Yes. All right. Told you guys we would be doing the Sunday recording, hopefully Sunday uploading schedule. And we're just going to go over a few things that happened this week in the UFC. So, Lincoln, I'll let you start us off.
Well, this one it's a little bit more than a week now. Is July 11th. We had this main event, right?
Yep.
Everybody was pushing for it. They had promos out the butt all day, nonstop promo. What did we get, Garrett?
We got the first UFC event on Fight Island, and we got one of the most boring matches I've ever seen in my life. I'm just kidding.
But guess what?
I'm just kidding.
That's a casual fan kind of thinking that you got right there.
Exactly. That is grade A, USDA certified casual. Just kidding.
That was beautiful.
I mean, like yeah. Okay, so obviously we're talking about the Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal title fight that took place on Saturday night, July.
We're July 11th. We're a little bit behind. We're just getting back. So it was a little bit boring. Not a lot happened, but it was strategical nonetheless. And as a wrestling enthusiast and other type of martial arts fan, I very much enjoy seeing somebody outthinking, outclassing the other person, being Jorge Masvidal. And that's just kind of what you have to do for that kind of an opponent.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I don't know if I necessarily even agree with the statement that it is boring, because to me, like, when you have two guys that go into a cage, it doesn't matter who they are, it doesn't really spell boring to me, because of the fact that you've got these two dudes that go into this and they're fighting. And it doesn't matter if one's pushing the other up against the cage for most of the fight. You see action happening. You see work happening. You know, a lot of people look at that fight in particular and they say, oh, Usman just pushed him up against the cage the entire time. When in reality, he's stomping toes. I mean, obviously we know just from what we've seen and even listening to professionals that stomping toes doesn't necessarily like hurt. I mean, it hurts, but it's not going to be like anything lasting. It's more of a distraction than anything. And he's hitting him with shoulder bumps. You know, I mean, he's stomping toes.
Body shots.
I mean, he's absolutely just digging with these body shots, working on that cardio.
Getting some knees.
Yeah, getting some good knees. He's pounding on the thighs of Jorge. And I mean, like, he got some really good takedowns in there too.
And the results showed in the 4th and 5th round, when Jorge wasn't getting taken against the fence, he couldn't do much.
Yeah,
he didn't have much left in the gas tank.
I mean, like, there were only like two or three times where Masvidal was able to like really explode and try to implement some of that creativity that he has as a striker. But at the end of the day, all Usman had to do was just really stay out of the way of those onslaughts and then come right back with his pressure, his grappling pressure. And I mean, like, to me, like, that doesn't necessarily say boring, because you know at any given point in time something could pop off and go crazy, and it could just be insane. The only times I feel like a fight could ever be justifiably called boring is when from the beginning even towards like say if it's a championship fight, and you know what I'm talking about when I start saying this is when I'm talking about like the Izzy versus Yoel fight.
Yeah, when they're both just stalling.
Yes, exactly. Like,
but this isn't technically what they weren't technically stalling Kamaru Usman and Jorge Masvidal, because they were working.
Exactly.
But then you look at Izzy Yoel, and they were both just kind of standing their gauge and both waiting to counter, and they're not pulling the trigger at all.
And it's like by the 4th and even by the 5th round, when still nothing is happening, that's when I feel like you're justified in saying, okay, that was boring, because genuinely nothing is happening. Whereas here, something is happening. Pressure is being applied. Aggression is being, pushed forward. You know, we got a few head clashes in there. So like something's happening.
Yeah. He got
Yeah.
some good elbows when he was on the ground.
Oh, for sure. He's a good ground and pound. Like I said, I thought those body shots, those uppercuts to Usman's abdomen were just absolutely vicious. You know, he's literally throwing pickup trucks into Masvidal's body, and Masvidal still, it's one of the coolest things, and people love to give Masvidal the credit coming out of this fight, even though Usman was the one that won, by saying, oh, he only had 6 days to prepare. And most of those days was just getting screened, getting flown overseas, losing the weight, and not really any time to actually prepare for the fight. And I mean, like the takedown defense that we see in this fight, to me, is just incredible. And it makes you just say to yourself, oh, wow, I can't imagine what it would have been like if we had like just as much time as Usman. But then Usman, I feel like, should get more credit than he is getting, because he also, on 6 days notice, had to prepare for a fighter that he wasn't prepared for in the first place.
Exactly.
So,
and he stuck to his game plan the whole time with the new game plan.
Yeah. I mean,
and he did a good job. I don't think he was boring, and I think that's a great second title defense now.
Yes.
Second after Colby.
Yep.
So now I just want to see Colby versus Masvidal for the next number one contender. It's a fight to make, and then give Gil Burns the Usman fight.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely, if Burns can get cleared, treated, and he can come back healthy, and it's not going to be a health issue for anybody, because if there's one person in the game that we can't, in any division that we can't have get sick, is the champion, because then the entire division gets held up, and we just don't need that.
I believe in the time it takes Usman to recover from this fight, Gilbert will get cleared and be better by then.
Hopefully, because if there's because I know for a fact Usman he feels the same way a lot of people feel. Like the fight between him and Masvidal was not as great as it possibly could have been. Still good to watch. Still, I liked it, but still could not have been as good as it might have been had Masvidal had that necessary time to train. And I think,
of course,
after their fight, Usman said to Masvidal, we'll run it back. And Masvidal said, yeah, let me beat somebody else. Let me get another win under my belt, so that so that everybody, including myself, feels like I deserve it. Otherwise,
which is great. That's a great way to look at it versus the immediate rematch way to look at it.
Yeah. Speaking of immediate rematches, what did you think of the Volkanovski-Holloway fight?
It's robbery. 2 knockdowns.
That's what I'm saying.
About here, ref.
It was crazy. Yeah, but it's so weird, because like I've seen so many fights now that even when I feel like, yes, this person should probably win on paper, that when I saw however many takedowns were being taking place in the latter half of that fight, like as soon as he got taken down in like the last 10 seconds of the 5th round, I told you, I threw my chair. I was like, that's it. He's done. Max just lost. I can't believe this. Max just lost. Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Always the takedown.
Exactly. And it is entirely reminiscent of when John Jones fought Dominic Reyes and only got two out of 9 takedowns over the course of the fight.
But it was at the end that he got those takedowns.
Exactly. And then it kind of just reminds me of, but it's so weird because in this fight, Max Holloway, obviously, and I told you this, I was literally texting you. I said, all Max Holloway needs to do is make the necessary adjustments to win this fight. But the only thing he has to worry about is Volkanovski's just raw strength and his raw power. And that's just what it came down to.
Good at the beginning. He made the adjustments from the last fight, only practicing over this medium right now here. And I was just like, Max, like when it started, I told you before it started, I was like, Volkanovski's going to win, and he's just the better fighter.
You said knockout in the 3rd round or something.
I was just bullshitting up. But the second it started and I saw how Max was putting it on him, I said, never mind, Blessed Express all the way, he's going to go.
Oh, yeah.
And then at the end, I was like, no! Yeah. You had it in your hand!
Oh, I was so angry. I was like, you literally let it just slip through your fingers. You couldn't hold on for 5 more seconds.
Guess what?
What?
It is what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy because like even Caesar's Palace, the Vegas odds were literally just seesawing throughout that fight. I mean,
Yeah.
because Max goes into it as the underdog, but then by the end of the first round, it's like turned around. All of a sudden, Max is the favorite because you see how much more one-sided this fight was, and it really just kind of came down to those takedowns, what was happening, and Volkanovski being able to turn the tides, really just get those points. That's really what it came down to. Was Volkanovski just got more points, and it all comes down to what was the effectiveness of said takedowns. Because I've said this before when we talked about Reyes and Jones, and about how it's justifiable in a sense how John Jones is able to win, because over the course of said fight, he's going for takedown from the beginning of the fight all the way throughout the fight, and it's not until the championship rounds does he finally start making headway on said takedowns. And now with this, it almost makes me think that the reason it's not justified is because of the fact that Volkanovski didn't start going for takedowns until the third, and then started making headway again in the coveted championship rounds. And I mean, I don't know.
And then he ended on top.
Exactly. Like that's the kind of thing people look for. It doesn't matter if in the beginning of the fight, you almost got put away. If you were the one at the end of the fight that, showed out more, you had more of those takedowns.
Exactly.
And it honestly, it reminds me a lot more of the Jose Aldo, Marlon Moraes fight.
Yes.
Because in that same instance, you can literally compare those two side by side. With this one, Max Holloway in the first 3 rounds is leading in strikes and is leading on all accounts. And by 4th and 5th, Volkanovski is leading in just a little bit in terms of strikes. But I guess by that point, Max is just kind of holding on. But with the Jose Aldo, Marlon Moraes fight, Aldo is leading in strikes, and Moraes got like 1 takedown or something.
He got 1 takedown at the end of the round, and he rocked him in the first exchange. Head kick.
Yeah.
Rocked Jose, and then got 1 takedown, and then for the rest of the fight, Jose had him hands on him.
Yeah, and so it just kind of blows my brain because you remember that article, where Big John McCarthy and Dana White were working to actually get one of those judges. I forget their name, but one of those judges on that called that card fired.
Yes.
And John McCarthy said on his own podcast, I literally wrote the rules. So
that's what everybody forgets. Big John has been there since the beginning.
Yeah, I literally wrote the rules. Max Holloway should have won that fight. Is basically what the idea behind that was. Yeah, let me see here if I can find the judge's name real quick.
Ooh, we're gonna pull up some screen sharing, dude.
Oh, I'd love to. Hold on a second. Whoa. Chill.
Oh.
All right, hold on a second.
I'm holding.
What the hell? Shut up. Did you just hate that shit? Advertisements? God.
I can see no advertisements.
Did you hear any?
No.
Okay, good. Then it was only on mine. Anyway, so yeah, let me go ahead and pull this up real quick. There we go. So yeah, so literally right here on screen, you got Max Holloway, Volkanovski. Holloway is easily leading in strikes in these first 3 rounds, and it's still close by the 4th and 5th, with Volkanovski, I guess, having a bigger lead right here in the 4th.
Yeah.
Because
when I saw that and I saw the last takedown, I was like, God, they're gonna give it to him.
Yeah, but I mean, what's so crazy is that you had people literally blowing Twitter up saying, by going into the 5th round, a lot of people had 3-1 Max.
Yeah.
So let me see here. Judges. Gosh, I guess they're not revealing his name for obvious reasons. But yeah. But that's basically the idea. We've got some Dana White. There's a quote from Dana White right here. You can't leave it to these guys. We've got some bad judging. I'm sure Holloway is devastated. Did anybody here score for Volkanovski? Anybody? Nobody in the media? I don't know. We'll have to figure it out. Looks like we've got to tighten up our refs and judges here on Fight Island. Now, here, let me do this in my best Dana White impression.
All right.
You can't leave it to these guys. We've got some bad judging. I'm sure it's in parentheses. Is devastated. Did anybody here score for Volkanovski? Anybody? Nobody in the media. I'm sorry.
It sounded a lot more like Al Pacino, but you did a good job.
I'm trying to. I'm trying to get that like really fucking pissed off feeling right there. Like, God damn it, I can't. It's like
anybody,
it's like whenever
give it to Volkanovski.
It's like when Johnny Hendricks lost to George St. Pierre.
Now, who gave it to George?
Does anybody in this building right now think that Johnny Hendricks didn't win this fight?
All right, good.
But anyway, yeah. So that's kind of.
So what do you think about the fights this Saturday?
This yesterday?
Yeah, just yesterday.
Yeah.
Depending on when we upload this.
This was. Oh man, I mean I enjoyed them honestly. Obviously, you guys can see right here. This was the night of submissions. You know, we start here in the women's flyweight with one. Jack Hermanson kicked the shit out of Kelvin Gastelum with a good submission.
Yeah, he did.
And then obviously the main event was just an absolute massacre. That was like knockdown.
He threw everything and the kitchen sink.
Yeah,
that's the difference, Garrett.
Yeah,
that's the difference.
He really. Oh man, it was just crazy because it basically. Okay, so are we going to talk about that first, and then just watch?
It seems like you're getting into it already. So let's just go.
I mean, like, what else am I supposed to say?
Okay. We're back. We're back, Garrett.
Okay, so basically, as you guys hopefully have seen, if you haven't, you should. I came out with a video where I was speculating who exactly was going to win this fight. Now, if you guys go back and you check out their original fight, yes, it looks like Joseph Benavidez was leading in that fight, and then the unfortunate head clash caused some unfortunate. You don't think so? I know you disagree, but I mean, like, it was more of like I remember when I was watching it, it was definitely more of Joseph Benavidez kind of just being very aggressive. But then when it came to ever to the grappling, it was always he was just trying to keep up, you know. And that was one of the things that I said.
That's what the whole kind of fight seemed like to me, is that he was just trying to keep up.
Mm-hmm.
Because the head clash is unfortunate, and it definitely helped. Or it definitely didn't help Joseph Benavidez's case.
Right.
But that happens in fighting, and the same thing could have happened if he got rocked by a punch. But the punch that he did get ended with would have ended him either way, I think.
Right.
In the first fight.
My thing about it was just that because of the head clash, it left him more open for a fight like that. Yeah. Not necessarily blaming him losing the fight on such a thing. I think it could have come down to any kind of submission or any kind of ground and pound at the end of the day. But when it comes to this fight, there was absolutely no question about it. I mean, it's from the beginning of this fight, like literally a minute in, bam, Joseph Benavidez goes down. And they literally, the commentators are literally sitting there saying it looked like a flash knockout because he sat on his butt and then just kind of like looked up and like he was completely stunned for like a full second. And then I'm surprised that the ref didn't stop it like right there when he was getting just elbows just raining down on top of him. But from that point on, Figueiredo was all over him. There was not a single moment where Benavidez was able to turn it around on Figueiredo. I mean, like I was really amazed in general that he got as far as he did in that round. But I mean, like, but that's one of the things I wanted to commend Benavidez for was that he expertly got as far as he did. You know, he did his best in terms of recovery.
He's an excellent fighter, and he definitely survived as best as he could.
Oh yeah, and that was just Figueiredo on his absolute A game. I mean, he had the
That boy
confidence.
rides buffaloes.
He's the god of war. Are you kidding me?
He
Like,
is.
but like seriously, like he had the confidence from the first round. Not, I'm sorry, the first fight. He had the confidence from the first fight going into this fight, and then once he had secured that knockdown on Benavidez, like I said, within like the first minute and a half, uh, he had the whole rest of the round under his belt, and he knew it too. He knew that there was just no way someone like that could recover that quickly. And when you're that aggressive and you're just on someone the entire way through the first round, at some point they're gonna slip up, and you're just gonna catch them. And then when it came down to all those, oh my god, all those nasty headlocks, those rear naked chokes. I tell you, dude, I'm sitting here in my chair.
How are you going to get a good deep breath in to explode if you're just fighting chokes the whole time?
Yeah. I mean, like he fought for seemed like 3 solid minutes of just fighting off a rear naked choke. And
which is like wearing one of those elevation masks and running up a hill. Like you're just running through
but instead of having a little bit of air to suck through, someone like plugged up all the holes.
Exactly. And you're just running up hills through mud. It's just you're not going to be able to come back as well as you could with air in you.
Right. And it was incredible to me that he was able to go as long as he did, but it's like as soon as Figueiredo got on his back, I was like, that's it. You know, like there's just no way. If there's anybody you don't want on your back in this fight, it's that guy. Because, I mean, he almost finished Benavidez in the first round of their last fight with this, like, really secure armbar. And it was only through scrambling and some expert rolling was Benavidez even able to get out of it at that time.
And I thought it was broken when I watched it back. Yeah. I was like, that's not how I remember it looking the first time.
Yeah.
Like, that was hurtful, but he scrambled out of it, but it looked like, you know, it definitely tore something or made it uncomfortable for the rest of the fight, because then he wasn't throwing as hard either.
Yeah. I mean, like, you even saw the ref, like, almost, like,
stop it right then and there. He almost jumped in on it.
But this time, the ref did have to come in and stop it. Because he literally killed Benavidez for like a second there. Like he actually murdered Benavidez.
Oh, that's gold.
I mean, like, okay, so like after like 2.5 to 3 minutes of just fighting off rear naked chokes, Benavidez somehow makes it back up to his feet. But every single time he goes in to fight Figueiredo, everything Figueiredo touches him with sends him down. And he hit him with 2 more knockdowns before he finally hit him again, got on top of him, got his back, got through a naked choke. And I mean, all the other ones were tight. They were in there too.
Yeah.
Except for like
the one that got him.
That was the one where he got it all the way wrapped around the back of his head and had his back arched to the point where it looked like a freaking lawn chair or something. And then Benavidez's whole body turned red. His whole body turned red. And then the camera is literally right in his face. And you can just see it. His mouth keeps opening, just gasping for air. And his eyes literally roll in the back of his head. And he's dead.
Like he's the Undertaker.
Yeah.
Rest peace.
And then the ref stops it. And then, you know, he's out. Obviously, he's out cold. And, you know, Figueiredo wins, all this, that, and the other. He's taking his stroll around the ring. The scariest part about that whole thing was that while he's, like, walking around and everybody's, like, around Benavidez's corpse, is that at some point he literally goes, I was like, oh, my God, thank goodness he's alive.
The Undertaker.
He got brought back to life.
He sit up and the eyes roll, but he is the Undertaker.
Oh, that was just terrifying, because that just shows you just how out he was. Like, he just literally, like, it literally looked like somebody had resurrected him and brought him back from the spirit plane. Wild, man. I mean, like, genuinely. I mean, like, when I saw that, I was like, he just got mauled.
Hey, the flyweights are back.
Yes, that was probably like the best flyweight fight I've seen in a while.
Yeah.
Oh
That
gosh.
I was just the whole time I was so I was so worried that the bantamweights weren't gonna like, or not the bantamweights, the flyweights just weren't gonna be around anymore. Because I like watching them because they're fast, they're agile,
Yeah.
they got lots of good stuff going for them.
Oh yeah.
But I was very worried they were gonna get rid of them. But now I have hope.
Yeah. Now there's no way you can get rid of him because Davison Figueiredo is an actual black bear, and he will actually kill you in the ring.
That was amazing.
Hold on, I got to show you this real quick because one of the things I wanted to talk about was where does Figueiredo go? Oh, by the way, this video you see on the screen right here.
Yeah.
This is really sad. This is a post fight press conference for Benavidez, and just like talking about it and talking about what it feels for him. I tell you, dude, my heart literally breaks every time I listen to it because he is on the verge of sobbing every
Yeah.
single word.
This is like his 4th time trying to be a champion now.
And it sucks because everybody wanted him to win.
Yeah.
Sad.
Hey, I don't feel too bad for him because he's dating Megan O'Leary.
Yeah. That's something he said. He's like, at least I've got a wife.
At least I got Megan O'Leary.
Who still thinks I'm the
Talking
best.
about all these other guys with championship belts.
Sad. So yeah, so one of the things I wanted to talk about right here in this article, and this is by, I want to say this is, I forget who this is by, Brett Okamoto or somebody. Oh no, this was it said it right here at the top somewhere. This is Mark Raimondi, Jeff Wagenheim, and Phil Murphy, and some of their opinions on this. So, in terms of where do Figueiredo go after this? Where do Figueiredo and Benavidez go after this? I'm sorry. Murphy kind of says, blah, 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 missing the weight. He's got 3 options. Brandon Moreno, Alex Perez, and Askar Askarov, who was also on this card yesterday and had a fight against, as you can see right here, Alexander Pantoja, and won. However, instead of picking Askar Askarov, he said Askar Askarov, who is another Dagestani fighter who operates out of the Fighting Eagles camp, along with most of the other ones that we've seen in the UFC. It
So
says
he's
right,
just a killer.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting because when I was watching his fight against Pantoja, and he's actually deaf. Apparently, he's like partially deaf, so he can't actually hear his corner. So he can't be given coaching during his fight.
Except for in between rounds.
Yeah, except for in between rounds. So he's more of a very instinctual type of fighter, which is very interesting.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, I like that a lot. So let me see here. They say that Askarov is a likely next opponent because he's in the top 5 right now, and he's undefeated. He's 12-0, I believe, in his streak. And we've known so many people that have maintained a 12-0 record going into a title fight. Dominic Reyes, Chris Weidman, all those kind of guys were 12-0 going into their title matchup. And plus, they also say in this article that there is the recency bias. You know, if you have been doing really good recently, there's likely a chance more people are going to recognize you and want to see you more.
Exactly.
But however, Phil Murphy here says that Brandon Moreno is actually probably better. I'm pulling him up right now. As you guys can see here. Ugh. Excuse me. But yeah, he's been doing really good too. He has been on a pretty significant winning streak, 2-fight winning streak. Well, more or less a 3-fight winning streak if you don't count his own split decision draw he's had against Askarov. But either one of those two, I personally feel like is going to be really good, especially after having seen Askarov for the first time for me personally yesterday, which I thought was really, really nice. So That'd be cool to see Figueiredo go up against a guy like that. But then it starts asking the question, um, where does Benavidez go? And I think that's the bigger question on a lot of people's mind is what happens to a guy who's 35, has been in this situation multiple times, has lost every time. Where does he go?
Bellator.
That could be an option. Some people throw around the idea of retirement. I don't know if it's necessarily.
I don't think he's ready for retirement. I just don't think he's at the same level as some of the guys that are in the UFC.
Right. I don't think he's at that level either. I don't think he thinks he's at that level, and that's the more important thing. I obviously with fighters in retirement, it's such a touchy issue because that's how they make their living. But Benavidez,
I'm all for people not retiring completely, but retiring from UFC competition and making these other smaller, these other smaller companies that are also producing, promotions. That's the word I was looking for. These other promotions get some of their name and fortune to come over there, and then you promote them and you promote your own promotion. Yeah. I think that's a great way to get other people going and other stuff, and to keep the fighters who aren't at UFC level anymore, still keep them fighting, still keep them paid, and they still get to do what they love.
I think the difference with characters like Joseph Benavidez is that here's the thing, because we talk about all the time how the flyweight division is unfortunately one of the more underrated divisions. It's not as stacked right now.
Yeah. I think it's just because they don't have as much personality as some of the other weight class. Like you got Sugar Sean, you got Cody Garbrandt and bantamweight, just a few little weight classes up. Then you got McGregor, you got the more Jorge Masvidal's. I think it's just they need somebody. Which if they do promote, the new guys that are coming in and all of that, it could be different. But I just don't feel like they're giving them enough spotlight or promotion.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes hand in hand with what we've seen from Benavidez here, because Benavidez I don't think is going to go anywhere. I don't think he should go anywhere because he's still one of the biggest names in this division. He's beating guys like Alex Perez, and that's a relatively higher tier name when it comes to the tier.
Borg is still around.
Right. So I mean, like, there's definitely still people that Joseph Benavidez can go up against. And speaking of Brandon Moreno, when we were talking about Davis and Figueiredo and who he could possibly go up against, that's another good option for Benavidez.
That is another good option.
Especially because it says right here in the bottom right here, if Benavidez wants to fight again, someone like Moreno would provide a great opponent, seeing as he's one of the few elite flyweights Benavidez has not already beaten. So if we want to see more progression for Benavidez, if we ever want to see Benavidez get to a position where he can fight for the title again, fifth time's the charm, a lot of people always say, then I mean, like,
Tony Khabib didn't happen, so
all right, well, sixth time the charm. We'll see what happens with that, but yeah, I mean, like, that'd be interesting to see where either of those two men go off in that direction. I feel like Figueiredo is going to just be on a hot streak for a while because of just how absolutely murderous he is. And
he just brought down the axe.
Yeah, and he just executed him.
He's not ready to stop yet.
Yeah, and I think Benavidez still is one of the greatest flyweights that we have, and I think he's going to be able to. I think he's going to be able to carry on for a little while longer. I don't feel like he's in the position of someone like compare it again to Jose Aldo, because you've got guys like 35 is not necessarily a cutoff age. It depends on what all you've been through, and then getting up to that point. I've realized now,
and what you're doing to withhold what you have.
Right. I feel like in a few more years, Benavidez is going to get to that position because he has been around for so long and he has had as much experience as he has had. Because he's going to end up like someone like Jose Aldo, who again in UFC 251 unfortunately lost his title fight to Peter Yan, who's now
Peter
just
Yan is here forever, dude.
yeah.
He's one of those Russian murderers.
Yeah, I mean, he's young, he's strong, he's diverse in his ability. I mean, like I don't see him going away anytime soon. So
Ah,
yeah.
this was a while ago, I know, but whenever he hit Uriah Faber
Mm-hmm.
with the fake out knee into a leg kick or into a high kick, that is one of the most beautiful transitions ever.
Yeah, I mean that was just incredible. So yeah, I guess moving from the Davis and Figueiredo and Benavidez fight, if you just want to kind of like work your way backwards, I do have some other stuff I want to say about the rest of this card that we viewed. Starting with Kelvin Gastelum and Jack Hermansson.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Or are you just kind of meh about Gastelum right now?
I feel like he could be doing so much better. It's one
Right.
of those things like I'm mad at him because like he had such a promising future whenever he started. He's knocking out Michael Bisping. He was just going and going, and then he started missing weight a little bit, and then he started and then he had the Darren Till fight, which was just like Yoel and Izzy. That's a boring fight. That's the standard. Is
Okay.
Darren Till Gastelum.
It's like right at that cutoff, I feel like.
Yeah.
Because they weren't taking the risk, they weren't being very aggressive.
They weren't. They didn't. None of them forced the takedown. None of them even pushed against the fence. They just kind of.
I think the key term for where that cutoff lies is pushing the action.
Yeah.
If you're not pushing the action, then I can understand why you would call it a boring fight. And I think with Gastelum nowadays, I think what he really just needs in order to get back to his former glory is some kind of confidence booster.
Yeah.
I think he just needs. I think what's going to end up happening is he's going to end up fighting someone that's not in the top 10 rankings right now, beat them, and then maybe get back on track and start working towards aiming up the ladder. But right now, I mean, I don't think he's in the right space right now to be able to take on guys like Hermansson and anybody else within that top 5.
Do you think it's because of the beating he took fighting Izzy? Do you think that's where it started?
I think you can make a good case for where that started because we've talked about this before on the show about what are the types of fights that can just take something away from a fighter.
Yeah.
What is it that exists in a fighter that can be stolen from them when they go through such a war like what Izzy and Gastelum went through?
Still one of my favorite fights.
Right. It's legendary, and Izzy, he came out on top, and he went on to beat Whitaker, and he did great. He went on to beat Yoel. He did the best he could with what he had. Now, real quick, as a side note, you heard Paulo Costa Izzy is confirmed for August.
Yeah, boy.
Yep.
Oh, somebody's gonna get murdered.
Oh, it's gonna be great. That's a fight where both those guys like to push the action.
Yeah, because Paulo Costa is not gonna wait.
Yeah, Yoel Romero is always one of those guys where he was a counter striker, and Izzy's also a counter striker, and that's kind of one of the arguments for why that whole thing fell apart. Anyway, for Kelvin Gastelum, it's really easy to see that being one of your most eventful, one of your most heartfelt performances, it's easy to see why after the fact that can just take something away from you. But like I said, I feel like I think going through a fight like that, I think the biggest thing going through a fight like that and losing was just a tear down of his character, like just, oh man, I lost my confidence. I lost whatever made me as aggressive a fighter as I could be. And then when he goes up against a guy like Darren Till, I don't really, it's hard to say what was going through his head in that fight. I don't know if he underprepared or what was the case, but it didn't seem like he was all there that night.
Yeah.
And then he lost, and that can further send someone down the rabbit hole. And then going into the Jack Hermanson fight, I mean, it's one of those weird things where he actually looked really good at the beginning of that fight. Jack Hermanson comes in, storms him, gets the double underhooks, or he got one underhook, I think, and he goes for the takedown. And Kelvin Gastelum executed a perfect lateral drop.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it was textbook.
That's that wrestling experience, though. That's that muscle memory.
Yeah, I mean, that was just absolutely textbook perfect. And he gets the mount, and, they're doing good work, good scrambles. But then as soon as I saw how deep Jack Hermanson secured that heel hook, I knew it was over, because Kelvin Gastelum did what I think is almost metaphoric or symbolic, I guess, whichever one, fits the scenario better, of what's been going on in his career right now. And that was, he got really, really relaxed, too relaxed for too long. And he didn't donkey kick. He didn't sit back, and he didn't kick off the butt. He didn't do what he needed to do to be able to get out of that position, and then he let himself get locked into it, had the tap, and there was just nothing he could do. I mean, it's great for Jack Hermanson. This puts him
right back where he wanted to be.
Yeah, this puts him in not necessarily title contention, but
he was getting there, and then he had that loss to Cannonier.
Let me look it up for you.
I think it was, because it was a minute ago. Is the way I just remember he lost, but now this brings him right back to where he wants to be.
Yeah, he had. It was Jared Cannonier.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. So I see what you're saying, but what this does do for Hermanson is this means that, basically, whoever loses Whitaker versus Till next week, that's going to be his opponent, I feel like.
Yeah.
Because
which either one is a good fight for him coming up and proving that he's ready.
Yeah, because
both of those guys, either a former champion or former champion contender.
Yeah, exactly. Because both those guys are big names. Jack Hermanson just beat Kelvin Gastelum, who was a relatively middle of the road name.
Yeah.
People know who he is. He has the heat, like you said.
Hermanson's bigger overseas.
Oh yeah, I believe it. But yeah, I mean, that's good for him. I mean, the dude's got mad submission game. So that's kind of why it was like, I knew it was going to be risky for Kelvin to take it to the ground like he did, and not necessarily when he did the lat drop, took him to the ground, but more so how he didn't really have that sense of urgency you need when you go up against specialists like that.
Yeah.
And I think like I said, I think that was the key problem going into fights against guys like Darren Till, is you don't have that sense of urgency. You don't have that sense of preparedness. You don't have that sense of, I need to win this fight. I need to put my all into this fight. And it makes me wonder if, like I said, back to my original point, is if that has to any at all to do with the fact that he did put his all into his Israel Adesanya fight and he came up short. So I don't know. We'll see. I don't know where. Like I said, I think Kelvin's gonna have to shoot for somebody in outside the top 10
or lower 10
or lower. I mean, I think he's number 7 right now. So, and most of the guys that are there with him in that range, like Souza, he's already beat. So I think, I don't know. It's gonna be like, do you want to have the esteem of beating someone you've already beat, or do you want to have the esteem of beating an up-and-newcomer you haven't beat yet?
That's fair also.
Yeah. I think that's – I mean, whatever the UFC is going to do, they're going to do it. I just think that for Gastelum is what he's going to need to be able to say, I'm still relevant, I can still do this, and then slowly start climbing his way back up the ladder. And maybe based on what happens with Hermanson, I could see a possible rematch in the future. It just kind of all comes down to what happens between Till and Whitaker next week, and then we'll see where the rankings fall after that. But yeah. So anyway, Let me get back over here. Pull this up for you guys. One of the things I wanted to do is just talk about some of the other stuff outside of the main and co-main, just because we had a pretty good card for ourselves this
It
past
really was.
Saturday.
It really was submission night.
Yeah, because we had the heel hook in the co-main, we had the rear naked choke in the main event, and then in the women's flyweight we had a knee bar, which is pretty brutal.
It's one of the most brutal ones that I've seen in a while.
Yeah, and the way that kind of unfolded was
it looked like it looked like the girl that was on bottom was trying to get a calf slicer, and then it just went wrong on her.
Yeah, Luana Carolina.
Yeah.
It was weird because they had gotten together on the ground, and then their legs just, I mean, talk
like
about an
pretzel.
entanglement. Yeah, like
Yeah. It was just pretzel. You couldn't see what was going to happen or where was going to go what, and then you just see a knee getting pulled back, and you're like, ooh.
Yeah, I mean, like it worked out really well for Lipsky because Lipsky, I mean, she said going into the fight that she was looking for the knockout, but she really just kind of adjusted on the fly and from what I understand, she's been working a lot on her jiu-jitsu game. I think her husband is a black belt in jiu-jitsu, so they've been working a lot on that, and it really just kind of her ability to adjust on the fly like that, and even from the position she was in, because her leg was trapped under her own body in such a weird position that she had to find a way to adjust and then sit on the chest of Carolina, and then she just kind of slowly but surely, secured that leg, isolated the leg, and then just pulled back with relative ease, and then
arched her back a little bit.
Arched her back, got the thigh right under her pelvis.
Yeah, got the pressure.
And then it was beautiful. It was almost instantly within a second of application. Carolina on the bottom is screaming, trying to like push her off of her, and the ref has to step in. And it was interesting because I mean, like she easily could have just tapped, but it almost looked like the scream was involuntary and the pushing off was more of a instinctual reaction as opposed to what the typical going crazy with the frantic taps.
No, that was a really frantic tap. That was like, you're breaking my knee.
Yeah, and I'm watching it with Zeta, and she's like, did that woman just break that other woman's leg? And I was like, probably.
Pretty close. Like she probably tore something.
Yeah, I mean that's not gonna feel good tomorrow. I mean she got up and she was sitting earlier, so I assume it's fine enough for her to be able to apply some pressure to it. But I mean that was awesome. that was great, and it was interesting too because
it's just a great adjustment on the ground.
Yeah, and it was even prior to that. I was really impressed with the almost superior striking level. Lipsky seemed to be on versus Carolina because I mean, she immediately rushes into her, hits her up with like a 4 to 5 combo, and then Carolina goes in for a kick, and then Lipsky just beams her right in the rib section with a body shot, and it sends Carolina right to the canvas. And that was what initially started their entanglement on the ground. Getting there in the first place was just absolutely knocking Carolina off her feet with just immense level of power. And it's like when you see stuff like that, you're like, oh man, I just can't wait to see where this where she goes now into the flyweight division, because I'm pretty sure this is the same division Valentina operates out of, correct? Yeah, so I mean, you see up and coming talent like this who didn't seem to have bad ground game in the first place, now working on said ground game and improving all facets of how she operates and what she operates at, and just growing, and you see that growth. And I think that's really interesting. After that fight had happened, we had a lightweight fight, which I think should have gotten fight of the night. I don't remember if it did or not, but it was Rafael Fiziev versus Mark DeCassi.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it was great. I really liked it a lot. First of all, before Fiziev even had really his moment to shine, Dakasi is out here literally throwing scythes through the air with these crazy kicks, like these crazy roundhouses, these crazy spinning axle kicks.
And I love the fight, all of these quarantine fights, because you can hear the air when he's like, they're making noise with their mouth, but you can also hear like the of the foot.
Oh yeah, and you can. I mean, like that was one of the biggest drawing points or selling points. I'm sorry, for Fiziev in this fight, because he's coming in with these kicks and these hard body shots to the body with said kicks, and you just hear the slap. You hear the slap. You hear the thud, and I mean, like it just echoes throughout the building, and that's how you know. Michael Bisping, was commentating. He said it best when you're a fighter and you're doing practice with your strikes and you got the tie pads and you hear that nice thwack, like that's what you're looking for. But it's so hard to actually get that on a person. And when you
do get it on a person,
like when you can get as many as
really
Fiziev did. Oh yeah. I mean, that just works on the cardio. And as soon as Fiziev is landing these kicks on Dakasi is immediately slowing down. It's very evident, and it's very clear just what's going on there with that guy. But ultimately, I think this was just a good shining moment for Fiziev.
I think they both got their name out there pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, Dakasi didn't do bad. I mean, he was in the fight the whole time. There were plenty of moments, especially in the third round, where he checked Fiziev. He let him know, hey, I'm still here. Because Fiziev got a little arrogant, maybe a little cocky. Just kind of.
That's when I was like, oh, this isn't really just one-sided. Like he is there, but he's just not as fast, or he's not pulling the trigger as much.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's, you said it right on the money right there. Just pulled the trigger, because if there's any kind of way you want to be able to win that fight, losing as badly as he was, you needed to be able to just pull the trigger. And he got like a few good combos in there, but I don't know. At the end of the fight, he really just didn't seem to have that gas tank to be able to unload. But Fiziev was really impressive because, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, according to his resume, he was a Kyrgyzstan. How do you say that? Kyrgyzstan. It's where Valentina's from as well.
Kazakhstan.
He was the Sambo combat champion of Kazakhstan. So that was really interesting. I mean, like you kind of see that in his wrestling ability and even in his striking ability. I mean, like the guy is just really, really impressive. And I understand he's only 8-1, relatively new to the mixed martial arts world, but I mean, like it looks like he's been in the cage his entire life, just based on how he performed.
I learned recently that there's two different types of sambo, where there's one that's more wrestling based, and there's one that's just like mixed martial arts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so sometimes they either practice in both, or they at least know enough of both to be because they're the champion of Sambo that year or whatever.
Yeah, I'd like to look into more of that, because Sambo just looks really cool.
It is really cool, because like you can watch videos of Khabib doing it. Like if you just look up anything from like even like the Dagestani Sambo championships are crazy.
Right. Yeah.
It's like watching an army of Khabibs fight each other.
Jeez. But yeah, so all that was great, and then like the opening fight we had to the main card, we mentioned these two earlier when we were talking about the flyweight main event, Alexander Pantoja versus Askar Askarov, going back to Dagestan. It was very interesting. It was a cool fight because, like you said, when it comes to these flyweights, it's just something is always happening all the time. They're always pushing the action, and with guys that are as small as this, just wrestling or just striking can be amplified so much more, because it's just the added agility.
The scrambles, I think, are the craziest with flyweights.
Oh yeah, the scrambles in this fight
you'll just wind up so many places. Like that's why whenever we were wrestling, I always liked watching the lower weight classes.
Right.
Because it was like you had to be on point with your technique, or somebody was going to get on top of you.
Right.
Like, no matter what, because it's something different. Like, the lower weight class, the more agile they are and everything, they just do more. And
Yeah.
I think that people who are less casual fans of UFC or mixed martial arts appreciate the flyweights more.
Yeah, that's a good starting weight class to get into.
Exactly, because it's where you see all the technique. Like, there's not as many mix-ups. Like, if you're fighting heavyweight, it's more just stand up, pound, or wrestle and smother the guy. But whenever you're down at that flyweight, you really have to be technical.
Yeah, I mean, in the first minute alone of the Pantoja-Askarov fight, Pantoja threw like 5 submission attempts.
Yeah.
And just one sequenced into the next.
There's not as much in the way. Like, whenever you're that small, it's just small muscle and bone, and you just can get it around easier. Whenever you're bigger and you have more muscle or more fat on you, you can't get that as easy as they can.
Yeah. And it was great too, because Askarov didn't care if Pantoja was a jiu-jitsu expert. You know,
he's still gonna throw it.
He stuck to his wrestling. It was just pressuring him the entire time, was on top of him the entire time. You definitely could give. I think you definitely have to give Pantoja the first round of that fight, just based on all the different submission attempts he threw. But then it was very easily in the second and third Askarov's fight, just because of the fact that he was just pushing. You know, he's closing the distance more. He is the aggressor the entire time. He's getting these takedowns. I mean, he's getting a lot of takedowns in this fight, and he's doing something with those takedowns. His takedown effectiveness is incredibly high. So yeah, I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more of Asker in the future, and even a potential title fight in the near future too. I mean, like I said, he's 12-0. He's been on a tear. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I thought it was a great fight. In terms of what's going to be going on next week, I'm really excited for it. I'll go ahead and just pull up next week's card, and we'll kind of just briefly mention that, and then any final thoughts, and then we'll probably get out of everybody's hair. But as you guys can see right here, main event: Robert Whittaker, Darren Till.
Whittaker versus Darren Till.
Yep, that's going to be great. And then we got Mauricio Hua, Shogun, going up against.
Nice.
Oh yeah, I'm excited.
We got some oldies on this card.
Yeah, Antonio Nogueira. I think that's a little nog. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And then we got Fabricio Verdum's coming back, but I'm also excited. I hate Fabricio Verdum, but
call back.
But I'm excited to see Alexander Gustafsson. Yeah. I'm pretty excited about that. And then we got Carla Esparza again.
Great at heavyweight.
You think so?
I think so.
I mean, honestly, I don't know, dude, because I felt like he was perfect for light heavyweight. But we'll see.
I think it's because he's one of the littler heavyweights, like Curtis Blades. Like, I think some of those littler heavyweights do really well against some of these bigger guys who don't have as much of a gas tank and aren't as fast as them.
Right, like Derek Lewis or somebody else like that.
Or like
Dos
Junior Dos Santos.
Yep, exactly.
Or Kane.
On that same wavelength. Carla Esparza is going to be on this one. That's going to be cool to see her. Other names we recognize. I recognize, obviously, Alex Oliveira, Paul Craig. Yeah. So that's gonna be nice. This is actually a pretty interesting card all the way around. Just check. Yeah, yeah, for sure. What is this, like 8 fights? Yeah, that's pretty great. That's like 7.
Yeah, it is 7. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah, so that's going to be nice. We got that this week, and then the week after that, I guess they're still working on it. It is the first fight night in August. Main eventing it right now is Holly Holm and Irene Aldana, and the co-main is Derek Brunson and Edmund Shaibanza. Yo, I forgot. That was another thing. Somebody was actually saying for Kelvin Gastelum, I know, I just remembered this in that article I mentioned previously. Kelvin Gastelum could potentially go up against Derek Brunson or whoever is really the winner of this fight.
That's a good one too, because Derek Bronson sucks. His highlight reel is getting beat up.
Oh man. Yeah. Well, so back over here, we'll just chill. So that's next week. I'm looking forward to that. Well, I guess I should say it's this coming week. It's gonna be this coming Saturday, so that's gonna be exciting. The last UFC event of July. Looking forward to that. And then we've got this one that we just went over. Let me actually see here because I want to see when. Yep, there it is. UFC 252. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You know what it's about.
Yeah.
Stipe versus DC3.
Yeah.
We got your boy Sean O'Malley on here.
Sugar Show.
Finally making his way onto this main card. Gino Dos Santos, Rosenstrike. Magomed Ankalaev, I'm excited to see. Oh, this is the rematch between Ankalaev and Kutabella.
Yeah, Kutabella's coming back.
Hell yeah, I'm pretty excited for that. Frankie Edgar's getting another shot in bantamweight, so that's going to be cool. And then that's as far as head, I think, as they've got things scheduled. But, yeah, we'll be updating. Looking forward to those events. Obviously doing shows on those events. Exactly. So, Lincoln, any other final thoughts before we attempt to get out of here?
No, I just hope everybody's staying safe and just enjoying the fights and enjoying our coming back to YouTube, dude.
Oh, no, I am. All right. So we will definitely check you guys later. And see ya.